talk to you about our mid-year update. We have a lot of changes. All this got abandoned. So what happened? Well, I set up to do a lot of different curriculum for third grade and alleviate myself from creating this year, as I had been doing for my son as a former school teacher for kindergarten through second grade. My little girl went into kindergarten this year and I put a lot more energy into that. So I thought, I'm gonna make it easy on myself. I'm gonna get curriculum for each subject except reading. Did any of it work? Sure, it could have, but it just wasn't working for us. But we were able to transition into what did work for us pretty smoothly without really any hiccups. So math, what happened? We set out to do Math Mammoth after having done Good and the Beautiful for kindergarten, first and second, and even starting the third grade Good and the Beautiful. But I decided to just put that aside and we were going to do this because I noticed it doesn't really have much for the parent to read. And I knew I was going to be homeschooling other people's kids. I'm doing a homeschool hybrid and I needed something ultra easy for me to manage and facilitate without one-on-one with my third grade son. One mistake I made, not necessarily a mistake, but it wasn't working for us, is that I put little tabs in each unit of this curriculum and I used little portions for his daily lesson from all or most of the sections. The curriculum says you can do that. You can use it in a mastery approach, one unit at a time. I noticed it would take about a month to complete it. Or it says you can use it in a spiral review approach. I think if I had realized sooner that I could have just easily done one unit a month, there's 9 units and about 9 months of school, we could have probably made this work. But we ended up going back to the Good and the Beautiful. And my son is able to use the Good and the Beautiful independently. What I do is I set a timer for him for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and I circle a section that he should aim to complete, and I'm just continuing to rotate around between him and my other students to make sure he's getting that direct instruction as needed. So if I were to complete this curriculum or any math curriculum, one thing that is key in third grade is to make sure your child is memorizing the multiplication facts on an ongoing basis. So that means picking a system for memorizing. What I picked was that we bought the Good and the Beautiful's musical multiplication MP3 files. They make a musical tune for all the facts that you need. They assume you already are going to pick up quickly the zeros, ones, twos, and tens. And then the rest they make tunes to. And they break them up into 4 groups: set A, set B, set C, set D. And guess what? There are 4 quarters in a school year. If you listen to those sets twice a day, and that'll be about 10 minutes of practice. After my son listens to the sets 2 times, I quiz him with these little sheets that I found for free, also by the Good and the Beautiful. It has all of them for each set. So I put the set he's working on in the front of his folder, and as he memorizes them, I check them off. So he's always reviewing and then always seeing what new ones he's picked up. And then we move on to the next set and continue to review old sets at least once a week. Anyways, I think that this curriculum could have worked for us if we had done it in a month-by-month fashion, but one thing I do not like is that it's not very clear to talk about. If it does, it's in the fine print, and I haven't read it, but maybe it's there. It should be more clear that children need an ongoing practice to memorize. And I do appreciate that Good and the Beautiful not only does prompt you to know that, which I did realize that, and I was applying that when I was using this, but a lot of parents wouldn't know that. This not only prompts you to know that, but it also provides other spiral review. At the end of each lesson, it has review. So you're not going to forget that while you're learning multiplication, how to do regrouping or other skills. So we are very happy that we switched back to Good and Beautiful quickly. It's a good curriculum. Then we completely abandoned the IEW structure and style. It's a great curriculum. It's just that I had found something else I liked better in the summer, and I had already debated about whether or not I was going to end up using this. It seemed great because once again, I was looking for things that would allow me to teach more students at a time. And this had video lessons. But what I found is I didn't need the video lessons in order to be able to teach multiple students. And it wasn't fitting with the way at which I wanted to teach writing. And because I had that experience, I figured out a way I like. And so what I am using from Teachers Pay Teachers, from a teacher who posted it, is this system where she teaches kids how to write an essay, and they write their draft on this. So you pick a topic, they read about it, and then you have your introductory paragraph. Then you have your first paragraph or topic of, so let's say you're writing about cats. You would have your introduction, maybe you'd have like a attention grabber called a hooks. Then your next sentence would be letting them know what your topic is. I'm going to write about cats. And then your third sentence of this introduction would be a thesis statement, letting your reader know what 3 things you're going to teach about cats. So the first thing you're going to teach about cats, you would focus on in the first paragraph, the second thing in the second paragraph, the third thing in the third paragraph. For example, you could talk about in the first paragraph how to take care of cats. The second paragraph could be about what cats look like. And the third paragraph could be fun cat facts. And then your conclusive paragraph is right here. And that's where you would just sum up your main points and tell maybe your favorite fact or something you learned to connect to your reader. And that's pretty much it. And I found it was pretty easy to get a kid to write a very simple 5-paragraph essay. And then as the teacher, of course, I'm going around helping them edit, reminding them of those basic conventions, good word choice, and things of that nature. So for a person who's comfortable doing that, this is a great choice. For a person who's not and really just needs someone else to teach their child writing, this is the better choice. And I do like, too, that the lady who wrote or gave these resources for teaching kids to write provides a checklist. So after they've written it by hand, they type it up. They even color code it when they type, which I think is really neat. So she says your first paragraph is red. That's your hook, your topic sentence, and your thesis. Your second paragraph is yellow. Your third is green. Your fourth is blue. And your fifth paragraph is red. Sorry. And so it really helps the kids stay organized. And so once they've typed it up or had me help them type it up, then I'll print it and I'll use proofreader's marks after I teach them, of course, what they are. And then I will mark their paper, or they can just edit with me guided, and we'll I'll give them pointers and they'll kind of fix it on the computer or on their paper as I give them pointers. But this is another option. You can print, some kids like that, where you can mark on their paper and then they edit it and then reprint the final draft. So that is what we're doing for writing, and it's really fun because they get to use these nature readers I have. This year we're just doing all our essays on animals so far. And next year, who knows, maybe we'll do other topics or whatever they're interested in. So then we also had set out for history to do pages in history. This is the first volume, ancient history, and the second volume is modern history. My student has that right now. And we abandoned it. Why did we abandon it? Well, because I found that with the amount of kids and age ranges I had, when I would sit down to read a chapter, I was really struggling to keep the kids engaged, even though I thought it would be super engaging because it's 2 fictional characters that go back in time to tell you about history. The chapters were very long and they were filled with tons of different events in one place. Not quite as succinct as some history curriculums that kind of break each section into a different event. So it's clear and short, little digestible bites. So I found it very difficult to get through. So when I decided over Christmas break to move into something else, my 5th grade student and then later my son decided that they would read it for themselves. So it's great because if they're engaged in it, they're going to enjoy it. But if you're trying to read it to a bunch of kids of mixed ages who aren't, it really is difficult to enjoy a book. So history has become an autonomous subject, or somewhat. My older kids went ahead and they're taking this on for themselves. And then also, of course, the kindergartners, I have 2 kindergartners, my daughter and her friend, they are doing more of, they're doing something completely different, like American symbols and things like that, unit by unit, little topics that we read picture books on, and then they write about it, very simply. But I'm talking about for 3rd through 5th graders. So what I'm doing for them is I'm continuing to do this Bible time each morning with them, or the mornings they come on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have a coloring book that it has in order all the major stories of the Bible that are appropriate for children, and it tells at the top of the coloring page for each story what the passage is. So I have out my Bible, and I read the passage, and then I have each child take turns doing a narration. Then after that, I will look in the table of contents. I would say, well, what world history event that could we read about that's happening at that same time? Noah's flood. Well, we could read this part of Mystery of History on the Ice Age because it fits in within the biblical time period that we're reading. So it turns out that I'm just sticking with Bible and ancient history this year. So my plan tentatively for next year is to start using the Abeka history book to go on to American history next year. All along, I've kind of interchanged between a gentle ancient history and a gentle American history. And then when they're older, I'll probably just do Mystery of History in 4-year cycles because there's 4 volumes that get through the whole course of history. All right, science. Wow. Okay, I'm excited about this, not this one, but what I did instead. We abandoned this. I was, once again, attempting to make my life easier by just picking a spine. And I thought, oh, this looks good as science experiments, and it has a broad range of the different topics of science. I think it really is geared towards more older kids, and with my broad range of ages, I felt that, once again, it was difficult for me to really stick with this. So I ended up using some of it and also piecing together some of my own resources, videos as we went along, and trying to make little unit themes to go along with what would kind of bridge the gap between 3rd and 5th grade and sort of brought it into the middle. It got to be too tedious, and I decided that I was going to do something very different. What I did is I decided to make science an autonomous subject, meaning my 3rd through 5th graders were going to take responsibility for their own learning, but I was going to facilitate it by creating journal prompts. I did it from kindergarten to 5th grade. I made year-long journal prompts that match the Florida science standards and tie in a Becca science reader to that corresponding grade level so that they also have a spine to go from. This is my kindergarten daughters, so even the kindergarteners are going to be doing this, but at their level. So, for example, kindergarten standards for science start very simple. And of course, science is one of those subjects you can be loosey-goosey with if you want to. But really, when you look at the standards, if you do take the time to actually teach your kids these concepts, they're going to have really good vocabulary and understanding of their world. And that way, when they get into higher studies of science in high school or college, it's not going to be over their head or boring because they already have a relationship with it. So I literally put the prompts in order of what makes sense logically. So kindergartners start with 5 senses, and so I put a prompt for them to do a self-portrait using a directed drawing from YouTube, and then they labeled their 5 senses. And so I have other little 5 senses activities, and they even go into other things. And I get excited about the older kids because they're gonna, even the younger kids, I have them doing some geography things. I want them to have an understanding of their world. And so the kindergartners are gonna learn, the kind of concept of, well, what is my planet? What are the continents, the 7 continents, and which one do I live on? And then within that continent, what is my country? What is my state? What is my city? What is my address? And then it's going to build. So every year, those same questions are going to be asked, but now it'll be bigger questions. Geography ones I kind of based on my own want for them to understand the basics of geography to help them with their history studies and appreciation of where they live. But science they do that very well with the standards, understanding what is matter and what is energy and what is the force of motion. And then as they get older, they understand more what are the laws, Newton's laws, and so on and so forth. And so these journal questions take them incrementally on that journey, always reviewing the old and adding on more. So I'm excited about them. So for example, my son, he's just started them, so he's kind of in the beginning. And I encourage the older kids. He said, what are the 8 planets? And dwarf planet once considered a planet. And I encourage them to start with capitals, use finger spaces, and with the proper punctuation. And as I'm facilitating and walking around with the kids, they're doing this on their own. They know to cut out each question because I just print out the whole packet of questions. And if they're in 3rd grade, they get that packet. And as you can see, he has this little packet here and he tucks it in the back. And then each day, however long we're working on it with our hybrid, maybe 30 minutes, I set the timer at as many questions as they get to is what they get to. And so if they need a globe, they go grab the globe. If they need a map, or if they need help, they ask me and I can help them with, what's the equator and where is it and all that. And so I'm just like with math, I'm facilitating, helping them grab a book if they need it or look it up on the internet. So that was math. We changed history, and we changed writing, and we changed science. We also changed grammar, okay? So I dropped everything. Nose tree grammar right here. I wasn't sure if I was going to use this or Shirley grammar. This went along with the IEW, so I was like, well, maybe we'll just use it since my goal was to use this. But since I didn't use that, and I also wanted to make sure that it wasn't too much to learn to write essays this year and do grammar that required more writing. Whereas Shirley grammar doesn't require as much writing. They are learning to answer questions that help them to tell the parts of speech in a sentence and to mark each word with the correct part of speech. SM, subject, noun, the verb, and so on. And they incrementally learn more and more. And I think it's simple. So I just basically printed them for free. I searched Shirley grammar, question, answer, flow, level 1. And I printed level 1, 2, and 3, and I put them in a folder. And in the front of the folder, I put this parts of speech chart. If you Google parts of speech in Google and then you click images, you find an image you want, screenshot it, and you can print it and make your own charts. That's a whole other video because I have a whole memory work binder with charts for each subject that they can reference and use for memory work for content areas like Bible, history, science, and geography. One other thing I abandoned was writing rhetoric. This also was my strategy to try to make life easier for me. I thought, okay, this is just a writing curriculum that's going to cover all the Charlotte Mason components. It even has comprehension questions, copy work, dictation, blah, 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 blah. It has it all. And they're using literature and retelling fables. And it really is, great. But I thought, okay, I'll do IEW on the days with the hybrid kids. It has video lessons. And then on the days the hybrid kids aren't here, I'm going to make it really easy on myself so I can enjoy my kids and have something pretty easy for my son that's already set up. Well, guess what? The easiest thing ended up not being those two things. The easiest thing ended up being doing this ongoing at his pace and every kid at their own pace, developing their essays and having me facilitate that and provide direct and immediate feedback as I go around and keep them going. It didn't matter if one kid's done early or not, because guess what they do? If they're done with their essay, and they type it up. And if it's not their turn to type that day, guess what writing is that day? It's you doing their science journal. So, I don't have to have a separate slot for science. It's just either I am doing writing on my essay or I'm working on my science journal. So I've made it really easy on myself. Not only am I just doing this for writing and like I said, or the science journal, but on the days I don't have students, I'm making it ultra easy for myself. So Mondays and Wednesdays, I have students here and we have our homeschool hybrid. It's more scheduled, but it's going really great. I love it. But on the days they're not there, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I just have my son orally rehearse his spelling words. Any ones he didn't say to me correctly, I have him write 3 times each or whatever way he wants to practice it. So he's ready for his weekly pre and post test. I have him do 1 box of that Shirley grammar I showed you over here. That takes like maybe 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute. And I have him, read, around 30 minutes, or maybe even more flexible than I am on the hybrid days with how much he reads, as he is a very good reader, and I'm not too worried about that area. Math, I don't know how, but somehow we're still like a few lessons ahead. So lately, I've been just having him do the lessons on Mondays and Wednesdays until eventually we get to a point where we need to. And what I'm doing is, like, if we're going to a play date, I have him listen to his multiplication songs, or I orally quiz him and then listen to the specific songs of the ones he's still working on to master the set he's on for multiplication, because that's the main meat and potatoes for third grade. But of course there are a lot of other things they need to learn too, so they really do need these lessons. Fridays is our homeschool group day. It's more of an enrichment day. I plan an activity and post it on our group page, letting parents know what's going to be happening. And then most of the time the kids are all just playing. We are there from like 10 to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's a grand time. I count it as a day when I'm tracking. I am still using this fun checklist I created, the daily checklist with boxes. Again, I mainly created this because I had students that I teach, and then they go home and their parents teach them, and so it was a way for me to communicate with the parents. But I went ahead and made Josiah and my other child also this checklist system, and I love it. So those were our changes this year, and I feel much better. I went through a little adjustment period where I was unhappy with especially science and history. As we were going into the new year, I had quickly adjusted math earlier in the year and quickly adjusted writing earlier in the year and didn't feel too much qualms about that. But I felt like history and science were sort of one of those things I was always struggling to be happy with and just kind of mulling over. And I feel so good now about those things for the most part. I just want to encourage you to keep looking for joy in your homeschool journey with Jesus.